All right, welcome to our Women's World discussion this morning. So today's topic is all about communication. So some women were taught, to be a bit expressive, yet some oftentimes don't really communicate effectively to ensure our men understand our thoughts and even challenge them to we want to have them always challenge them to read our minds. But really, why? Well, let's welcome Deborah Della Pena Simmons this morning, counseling and consulting psychologist, and SallyAnn Gray, founder of Global Speakers, to share their views on all of this communicating women stuff. Good morning, ladies. How are you?
Morning. Good morning. How are you?
Okay, I'm very well, thank you. All right, well, this morning, I'm really excited to hear what you both have to say, because this is definitely a topic that it has nothing just to do with the communicating with in a intimate relationship, but communication is very important overall. I don't know, Deborah, if you want to just jump in and just frame what the concept of good communication is, the importance of it, and then that of in a relationship.
Okay, well, for starters, we must understand the basic definition of communication, which is basically sending and receiving information, because communication can be in different ways. Okay, so how we communicate with humans is totally different than how we communicate with animals. In terms of communication, there are different types, there are styles, and of course, there are barriers to communication.
Okay, and so in a relationship, Sally, probably you want to just jump and just take it a little further. The importance of having really good communication in a relationship, what does that mean for two people, trying to make something work?
Well, I think it's very important for, we always talk about communication, but I really think that bigger than just giving communication tips is understanding person's social styles, understanding person's personality, knowing who you're dealing with, sitting down and assessing to yourself, what is the purpose of this message that I want to share, and what is the best modality to do this in? So is it appropriate for me to send this message based on the outcome that you want via text? Or should I wait until we can have a face-to-face conversation, because this type of message or communication would be best served, the goals and objectives of what I want to achieve by having this level of communication would be better served in person, via text, via email. And so we have to look at who we're dealing with and what it is that we hope to say and what is our intention in saying it. And that will help to guide, because I think a lot of times we give a lot of communication advice which is very blanket, and I think we need to dig a little bit deeper and enable people and empower them to sit with themselves and ask themselves these questions. One, what is the goal of the communication, whether it's professional or personal? Is now the right time to communicate, and what is the best modality, meaning method? Should I do it face-to-face, email, via text? That kind of a thing, and understanding the person that you're dealing with. Because the truth is, the method you try in the morning with Josh may not be the best method
and
modality for the evening with Sarah. So we have to, be clear about who we're speaking to.
Well, I'm happy because you just mentioned exactly my situation with my husband. So I don't talk to him in the morning. It's not, anyway. So before you get into that, isn't there a way in which, Deborah, your emotions can sometimes seep into how affecting the way in which you communicate? A friend of mine was talking to me yesterday, telling me that her boyfriend, she's having an issue having a good conversation with him because she feels he just sits there and doesn't really respond, and now she's just over and can't be bothered and that kind of thing. I mean, emotionally, you mentioned the goal, SallyAnn, but emotionally, sometimes doesn't that kind of almost mess up how you really want to or what you should be communicating, Deborah?
Yes, that's when we are, normally that is a barrier. That's a type of barrier communication, as a matter of fact. So we classify that under the psychological interference. So when you're emotionally stressed, it can definitely interfere with how you are listening and how you're sending off messages. For this, it means that the other party, I would say, may need to have a little bit of more understanding, and the party who's going through this emotional stress at this time could actually discuss it at another time or give them some time to take control of their emotions, because we know we all have bad days, and it's difficult to communicate when we all have bad days. So in a situation like that, allow the person to vent, but be supportive, listen, and ensure that you can reassure that I will speak to you whenever you're ready to talk. I am here, and I totally understand. So that's definitely one of our barriers to communication.
All right, and why is it that, for example, we started our conversation in the intro explaining that, for the women who are a little bit more expressive, headstrong, however they want to call it, very strong, and their personality, how do you really understand how to kind of scale back that kind of very out there personality in a relationship with a man, and wanting to allow a good flow of communication, pretty much a strong woman kind of situation? Can there be issues with that personality trait and being in a relationship with a man who may not be sure about how you're coming too strong? How do you have to scale back yourself? What do you say to that female?
Well, that sounds like we're having role dynamics, right? So we have to remember our roles in a relationship. And remember your why. So in terms of being a woman and a man, there are different roles. So you don't want to have any role confusion, which can cause, in the interim, conflict. So the barrier can actually lead to greater conflict. Yes, this is a challenge. Even in my own marriage, I totally get it. But if we are to zoom into the role of a woman, will zoom into the fact that there comes a time when we have to have some sort of submission. And submission is a totally different topic, because it can be misunderstood.
Yes.
So that's another down the road. So in terms of knowing the role, a man tends to take on a role of leadership in different areas. So be cognizant of his ego.
Yes.
Be cognizant of, that's a man. His ego is his thing. So we have to be mindful of it. And we have to be mindful of, as a woman, yes, in the working world, we are nurturers, we are leaders, especially in the professional world, but we have to know when to tone it down in the setting of relationships and marriage, because then we have children who are looking up at us, and their role needs to be identified and defined by how they see us interacting. So that's also important. So I totally get it. There's always a confusion, but we must be mindful of it and know when to take on that sort of leadership, and when to take on the nurturing, and when to actually stroke the ego.
All right, Sally, when a couple comes together and there's an interest in them moving forward, how early in the relationship is it for you to kind of almost, do you need to frame your communication style and just make it be known how what works? Is it a bit of almost like, I love talking about the love languages, I just think it's just genius, but do you really have to put a lot of work at the beginning of this relationship to say, this is kind of how I work, and he should say, this is how I work? Like, what's the reality of setting up a relationship for success, good communication success?
Well, I think it's important, Tammy, that a couple establish, some ground rules and some guardrails at the beginning, because it will help to set the tone. And may I state, before I go into the tips and tools, that this is something that should be revisited at least every quarter. In our business, we test our
Q1,
goals
Q2.
and our objectives, look at our financial statements quarterly to ensure that we're aligned. I would suggest, people think that relationships are an institution, marriage is an institution, and so we need to take these things that we do in business and apply it to the relationship, because guess what we established in January may very well change by July, based on the fact that I have grown personally, based on the fact that the partner, the husband, the boyfriend has grown in his own personal development, and dynamics can change. So having said that, the quarterly check-in, right?
Yes.
Especially for young, driven, ambitious, professional women like myself and Deborah, right? We're very very strong, right? And so I think it's important for us as women to get clear about the difference between IQ and EQ. I have a friend who is an expert at emotional intelligence, and she talks to me a lot about EQ, which is your emotional quotient. And
yes.
then we know that EQ is our intelligent quotient. And so sometimes as women, we rule with the emotions and the intelligence. Like you go to your girlfriend and you say, tell me something, this happened between me and so this morning. How this sound to you? You think this makes sense? Because we're kicking in with our intelligent quotient to kind of rationalize things out. But it's very important for us to zone into EQ and to assess the situation, using our emotional quotient or emotional, skill set, and approach it from the perspective of what is my partner feeling in this moment.
Right.
Is what I said what I intended to communicate, and how can we balance the skills and ensure that we are meeting the needs of our partner from a communication standpoint. It is true that men don't speak a lot. Most men, not all men. My husband doesn't speak a lot. And so I have had to learn how to not necessarily tone it back or change who I am, but just be cognizant from an emotional standpoint when is a good time to speak, and will approaching the situation from a particular emotional state yield me the dividends that I'm looking for, right? If you were to use financial terms.
Yes.
So we have to assess.
I liked how you kind of referenced and used the analogy of a relationship being that of focusing like you do on a business. Because sometimes, even when I'm talking to my husband, he'd be like, but I don't see you talking to so-and-so like that when I hear you on the phone. So why are you talking to me like that kind of thing? And so indeed, this is a relationship, a business relationship, a communication space. What are the actual effects of the lack of that communication in a relationship, Deborah? What really can happen if we're not just doing the right thing as it relates to how we communicate with each other in that intimate relationship? What can happen? What's the reality?
Well, is that for me or for Deborah?
I was saying Deborah, but anyway, Deborah, you can probably start, and then Sally can just jump and put some sprinkles. Go right ahead, Deborah.
No problem. All right, in terms of the reality, this means there can be misconceptions. We can have wrong expectations. These are some of the barriers that we experience in communication. Our body language can be so wrong. Like we're listening and we're communicating, but then we're like, okay, yeah, whatever, on our faces. The lack of experience can be a challenge. No, I definitely have a downfall where that is concerned. And this happens to people who have grown up sheltered and not being able to socialize as much. So now that I'm in adulthood, I'm socializing a lot. So not listening is also a choice. So you're doing everything else and you're really not getting my one-on-one. No, I cannot stand that. But there are some people that can multitask. Right, my husband is one of them. He's doing this, he's doing that, and I'm like, but he can't pay me some attention, Are you not listening to what I'm saying? But he's actually listening, but doing something else, and it works for him. No, I'm not a multitasker. So personality dynamics becomes a challenge, but as in everything, the Bible teaches us that understanding is one of our major keys. Be quick to hear, slow to speak, and being quick to hear means you get time to understand, catch up your body language, check everything, check to ensure that you are in the communication, in the proper communication alignment with your partner, because every partner is different. You have to understand your partner for who they are, because everybody is from a different background. And slow to attack, slow to speak. So don't attack, listen actively, and be clear about what you want to say.
Okay, so Sally, if we're having communication issues, What are some of the things we can put in place to actually fix those things? I don't know if you want to just start from whether bringing in tips, which way, but the long and short is we have viewers right now saying, tell me what me to do, because I just don't know how to talk to this man. Please to help me. How do we really identify some of the simple things we can put into effect today as it relates to really and truly doing something about if we have a communication barrier of such?
Well, first of all, I would say one of the first things that we can do as women is stop asking our female friends for so much advice on how they speak to our partner, because they really don't understand the dynamics. And I think sometimes we would have been able to handle it a little bit better, but because our approach is being guided by the voice and opinions of 4 or 5, especially women,
who aren't with your
that can kind of distort things. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a good friend you can speak to, but don't allow it to guide you. So I would say the first tip is to wait until the plane is level and everybody's emotions are level, and you guys have a normal little thing going on, nobody's upset about anything, and ask, say, honey, I've recognized in the last couple of weeks and months that we're not in sync. Has something changed? Is something wrong? When I approach you, I recognize that you get angry very quickly and you don't like my tone. Could you explain to me what it is that I'm doing wrong? Because my intention is not to disrespect you, is not to make you feel bad. My intention is not to come off as how you're perceiving. So could you talk to me a little bit about how I'm coming across and what approach would work better with you? Ask him directly. So my first tip is get people out of business and ask the partner, your partner, what will work. And then the part that I have struggled with a lot over the years is take the time to listen, and not listen to respond, but listen to understand.
Yeah.
And try and put yourself in the space of where your partner is and say, this don't make sense to me, but I'm going to try a new approach. Because the truth is, if what you have been doing for the past 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, 6 months has not worked, it behooves you to at least try another approach. So get people out your business, ask directly. And then when you ask directly, make a commitment to yourself to say, you know what, this is a new page as I'm going to turn.
Yeah.
I'm going to respect the wishes of my partner, my husband, and I'm going to fall in line and compromise and see how best I can implement the steps that he has recommended, and then take it from there.
And
another tip, one last tip. We read for everything, right? Tammy, Deborah, we read for all of these degrees. We go to school for 4 years to get a degree to say that we are competent in a particular field of study. What I would suggest, guys, if you're genuinely having communication issues, find a good communication book and read. Like Google in your downtime when you're relaxing, ladies. Just Google how to communicate with my husband, how to communicate with my partner. Pull up YouTube, listen to the videos, and have wisdom to discern, to pick sense out of nonsense.
Right.
But the point of this tip and tool is to get into the mindset of educating yourself if you truly feel incompetent. So those are the tips that I would offer.
Thank you. And I wanted to throw a little dart in there. So if the person you're trying with just has for example, a big wall up, what does that then say to you? What do you're trying your frustrations coming on the flip side. What would be the reality for that person, Deborah?
All right, so I would definitely learn their pattern of communication. So people may not be verbal communicators, but you can do acts of service. You can, you're actually in a relationship where you have somebody who can't say, I love you, but they will do stuff for you. They'll give you stuff. So learn their type of communication. So it's not necessarily verbal, touch, being there for them, doing things with them.
So is that Deborah, is that then for the person on the other side trying, is that a sense of unlearning what you brought to the table sometimes? Because if I come and I say, I'm telling you this, I love you, and that's what I really want, it's my desire, but the other person isn't giving it to me, what does that mean? Somebody is going to have to acquiesce, right? Somebody has to kind of just be like, okay, if this is important enough to me, this may be how I want to be, you know, communicated with or by or in this manner, but it's not happening. Does that mean I have to dumb down myself? What does that mean, really?
That means that you got to meet the person halfway. So pretty much yes, because if love is patient, it's kind, it's forgiving, it's understanding, it means that we have to kind of give and take sometimes. And you have to do some learned behavior as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and two, becoming one is so important. It's like really, really important that whatever you do to the person affects how they react. That's how tied you guys are, especially in marriages.
Yes.
So you want to be cognizant of the fact that sometimes you might have to give a little to kind of build the marriage. Focus on the why you're together. So whatever you do is not because you're taking it personal, but because you are uniting.
In this arrangement.
You're looking at the union at a bigger picture of the benefits of the union. As Sally said, an institution.
Right.
So we work to the common goal of the institution.
Awesome. And any parting words? I know Sally had given us some kickstart, keeping the people out of your business, being focused on your person and all those things, and I absolutely agree. Any other parting words for our women here trying to make sure that on this Thursday they have something else to do for the weekend, some new work? What can you tell our ladies?
Is that for me?
I was asking Deborah if she had her parting words.
What we could do actioning. So here's a tip of action in terms of communication. When was the last time you write a love note? So guess what? Write an appreciation note. I love you because I appreciate, and hide it. Like, do that. Don't even give a clue where you're going to put it, but you know that your partner is going to find, and I promise you something awesome is going to happen. You're going to see a beautiful reaction.
All right, Deborah, I'm going to try to know something. I'm going to make sure I contact you after that. And Sally, any last words?
All right. So my homework for you ladies or anybody who is desirous of communicating better with their partner and people in general, go ahead, Google some personality styles or social styles tests. Complete it. You and your partner can make it like a little time out, you know, Saturday night. Do that together and see what you come up with. And then look at the strengths and weaknesses of that social style. Let's say, for example, you land in dove. You know, you're a dove, or you're the eagle. Look at the strengths and weaknesses of that, and then talk about it to see what the differences and similarities are, and then move from that space of educating yourselves about each other.
Awesome. Lovely, ladies. Thank you so much. Quite informative, on top, on point. Always great having you both. Thank you, Deborah Delapena-Simmons, counseling and consulting psychologist, and SallyAnn Gray, founder of Global Speakers, for joining us this morning. That's it for our Women's World discussion this Thursday morning.